There are two types of mail that come in a beige envelope, and both of them are designed to ruin your day. One is from the IRS, a government agency that wants your money. The other is from the Crestview Meadows Homeowners Association, a quasi-government agency that wants your money, your dignity, and your soul. I was staring at one of the latter. It was resting on my granite countertop, flimsy and unassuming, yet it felt like it weighed 30 pounds. It had Crestview Meadows HOA printed in a sterile, joyless font in the corner. "Well, General?" I said to my cat, a fluffy orange creature who looked perpetually unimpressed. General Tso, named for his spicy personality and tendency to attack feet, merely blinked at me from his perch on the kitchen stool. "What's our poison today? Is the mailbox not a pre-approved shade of suburban monotony? Did I leave my garbage can out for— Wait, I checked my watch. 3 minutes past the 8 a.m. deadline?" The General offered a half-hearted meow, which I took as, "Just open the damn thing so you'll stop talking to me." I slid my finger under the flap. The paper inside was crisp. I hate that. It means they're using the expensive 32-pound stock paper to tell you you're a failure as a human being. I unfolded it. There it was, in bold, judgmental type. Official notice of violation. Fine. $100,000. My eyes scanned the page, past the boilerplate legal threats, to the box checked Nature of Violation. Violation of Bylaw 7.4, Aesthetic Cohesion and Landscape Uniformity. Property cited for unkempt and overgrown rose bushes located on the front-facing property line. Bushes are non-compliant with community aesthetic standards. I actually laughed, a short, sharp, bitter sound. "Unkempt," I muttered. I walked out of the kitchen, through the living room, and stood at my front window, coffee in hand. There they were. My two glorious, sprawling, chaotic monuments to nature's indifference to rules. They were Rosa rugosa, a hardy, thorny, beautiful species that exploded in a riot of deep, fragrant red blooms every summer. They were, at the moment, about 7 feet tall and just as wide, spilling slightly over the edge of my immaculate and HOA-compliant walkway. They were, in a word, perfect. My late wife, Emily, had planted them. We'd moved into this beige box in this beige neighborhood 8 years ago. Emily, a painter who saw color in a world that demanded taupe, had felt stifled from day one. On our first weekend here, she'd gone to the nursery and come back with 2 tiny, thorny sticks. "These," she'd declared, covered in mud, "are my rebellion bushes. They're going to be wild, and they're going to be beautiful. And they are not," she'd added, pointing a dirty finger at our neighbor's perfectly spherical, chemically lobotomized boxwoods, "going to look like sad green meatballs." She was right. They were beautiful. After she passed, they were one of the few things left that still felt like her. They were messy and vibrant and alive. And now, the HOA wanted me to turn them into meatballs. I was still staring at them, lost in memory, when I saw her. Brenda. Brenda was the HOA president, a position she held with the religious fervor of a zealot and the unblinking tyranny of a tin-pot dictator. She was dressed, as always, in a beige pantsuit that perfectly matched the violation envelope. She wasn't just walking. She was patrolling, her clipboard held at the ready like a weapon. She saw me in the window. Oh, she knew I'd gotten the letter. She stopped at the edge of my lawn, made a tut-tut sound that I could feel through the double-pane glass, and made a little tick mark on her clipboard. I felt a hot flush of anger. I set my mug down and walked right out the front door. "Brenda," I said. My voice was tight. "Frank." She nodded, not looking up from her notes. "You received the notice, I see." "I did. I have to say I'm a little confused. Unkempt? They're rose bushes, Brenda. This is what they do. They bloom." She finally looked up. Her eyes were small and sharp. "They are non-compliant, Frank. They are encroaching on the public sidewalk. They lack definition." "Definition? They're bushes. They're not a math problem." "It's a matter of community standards," she said, her voice a nasal monotone that set my teeth on edge. "Your neighbors have to look at this. It's messy. It implies neglect. Crestview Meadows is a community of standards, and this," she gestured at the beautiful, blooming bushes, "is not up to par." "My neighbors," I shot back, my voice rising. "Dave, next door? He told me last week he loved them. He said they smelled nice when he got his mail. Janet across the street said they reminded her of her grandmother's garden." "Dave isn't on the Architectural Review Committee. I am," she snapped. "And the committee has determined that they are an eyesore. You have 14 days to remediate the situation, Frank. That means trim them down to a compliant uniform size, no higher than 4 feet. And they must be neat. And if I don't? The fine doubles. And doubles again every 14 days thereafter. Eventually, we will place a lien on your property and hire our own landscaper to remove them. And trust me," she added, a tiny, cruel smile playing on her lips, "our vendor is very expensive." She made another tick on her clipboard. "Have a community-minded day, Frank." She turned and marched off, her beige pantsuited legs scissoring down the sidewalk. I stood there, vibrating with a rage I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't about the $100. It wasn't even about the beige pantsuit. It was about Emily. It was about her rebellion. "A lien," I said to General So, who had followed me to the door. "She wants to turn them into meatballs or she'll steal my house." The general meowed and rubbed against my leg. "You're right," I said, scooping him up. "This means war. But first, I'm going to try." I was going to try to be the bigger man. I was going to try to comply. It was a decision I would regret, hilariously, for the next 48 hours. I am a graphic designer. I use a mouse and a keyboard. My idea of manual labor is opening a stubborn jar of pickles, but I was determined. I was going to remediate the situation. I was going to be the reasonable, compliant homeowner. My first stop was the local hardware superstore. I walked into the lawn and garden section and was immediately overwhelmed. There were shears, loppers, pruners, saws, and something that looked like a medieval torture device, but was apparently for aerating. I found a teenage employee staring at his phone. "Excuse me," I said. "I need to, prune a rose bush." He looked up, dead-eyed. "Like, trim it?" "Yeah, trim it, prune it, remediate it, give it definition." "You want hedge shears, probably. Aisle 12, and gloves, aisle 14. I returned 30 minutes later with a pair of shears that felt heavy and awkward, a set of thick leather, rose-proof gloves that went up to my elbows, and a book titled Pruning for Dummies. "This is fine," I muttered to myself, standing in my driveway and looking at the bushes. "This is just... it's like a haircut. A very, very thorny haircut." I opened the book. Chapter 1. Identifying Deadwood. I looked at the bush. It all looked wood. Step 2. Prune for airflow. I stuck my head into the bush. It was a dense, dark, thorny maze. I immediately got a thorn stuck in my scalp. "Ow! Son of a..." Okay, forget the book. I was just going to go for it. I was going to make it neat. I put on the gloves, grabbed the shears, and took my first snip. Snip. A small branch fell to the ground. See? I said aloud. Easy. I'm a gardener, a horticulturalist, a... Snipe. Snipe. I stepped back. I had created a small, concave dent in the side of the bush. It looked less pruned and more recently attacked by a very specific beaver-shaped robot. Okay, just even it out, I told myself. For the next 2 hours, I engaged in mortal combat with the Rosa rugosa. The bushes, it turned in, were not passive victims. They were active participants. Thorns snagged my shirt. A branch, cut under tension, whipped back and slapped me in the face. My rose-proof gloves were apparently only proof against very polite, domesticated roses. These rebellion bushes had thorns that laughed at leather and went straight for my forearm. I was sweating. I was bleeding from 3 different places. I was covered in tiny green leaf bits. I stepped back to survey my work. It was a disaster. It wasn't a meatball. It wasn't a sphere. It wasn't neat. It looked like a dog had tried to build a nest in it, given up, and then set it on fire. I had hacked and chopped and sheared until the bush on the left was lopsided, with a giant bald spot near the bottom, and the one on the right, well, the one on the right looked like it was leaning, as if desperately trying to escape me. "Oh no," I whispered. "Oh, Emily, I'm so sorry." As if summoned by my failure, my neighbor Dave's garage door rumbled open. Dave is a good guy. Retired engineer, loves fishing, hates the HOA. He wandered over, holding a can of beer, his eyes wide. "Frank," he said, stopping a safe 10 feet away. What happened here? Did a deer get caught in a wood chipper?" "I was remediating," I said weakly, holding up my shears. "Brenda." Dave winced. "Ah, the Unkempt citation. I got one from my mailbox having a non-compliant lean of 3 degrees. I had to reset the whole post in concrete." He took a sip of his beer. "Look, Frank, I'm not an arborist, but I think you made it worse." "You think? It looks assaulted." He was right. It was awful. And Brenda would be by tomorrow. This wasn't remediated. This was escalated. "I have to call a professional," I sighed, defeated. "Good idea," Dave said. "Call Jim's Lawn and Order. He's the HOA-approved vendor. He knows how to make the beige gods happy." This was my next mistake. I called Jim's Lawn and Order. Jim himself showed up the next morning, driving a truck so clean it looked like it had never seen actual dirt. He was a big guy with a clipboard of his own. He whistled when he saw my handiwork. "Whoa, you really did a number on these, huh?" "I was just trying to... Look, can you fix it? Can you make it neat? The HOA is on my case." Jim sighed. He walked around the bushes, poked at them, and shook his head. "Look, Frank, I'll be honest with you. This is a Rosa rugosa. This is what it does. It's a shrub rose. It's supposed to look like this. Well, not like this, he gestured to my hack job. But, you know, wild." "So you can fix it?" I asked, hopeful. "I can," he said, "but you won't like it. See, I'm on Brenda's approved list. That means when she says neat, I know exactly what she means. She means I take my biggest electric hedge trimmer and I buzz these things into 2 identical 4-foot by 4-foot Suance green meatballs. That's the Crestview Meadows standard. We'd lose every single one of these blooms. They'd just be green orbs." Emily's rebellion bushes turned into sad green meatballs. "No," I said, the word coming out sharp. "No, absolutely not. My wife planted these." Jim held up his hands. Hey, I get it. They're beautiful, but that's the job, man. If I trim them and she doesn't like it, I get a vendor violation. She'll pull me from the approved list. My hands are tied. It's meatballs or nothing. Then it's nothing, I said, my jaw tight. Suit yourself, he shrugged. But, you might want to do something. Your 14 days are ticking. And, this, he pointed again at my work. This is definitely not compliant. Jim left. I was back at square one, but worse. I was $150 poorer from my hardware store adventure. My arms looked like I'd been hugging a cactus, and the bushes were now both unkempt and hideously deformed. The very next day, a new beige envelope appeared. Second notice, failure to remediate. Fine, $200. Total due, $300. I was sitting on my front porch, staring at the new fine, a very unneighborly string of curses running through my head. I was defeated. I'd have to let them do it. I'd have to let them murder Emily's bushes and turn them into orbs of sadness. Dave wandered over again, this time with 2 beers. He handed one to me. She got you again, huh? Again, I grumbled, taking a long pull. Failure to remediate. Now I'm out $300 and I still have to have them butchered. She's on a tear, Dave said, sitting on the step. Cited me for my garbage can being visible from the street 2 minutes before pickup. I was literally walking it to the curb. She told me my timing was non-compliant. We sat in silence for a minute, just 2 suburban men beaten down by beige tyranny. I just don't get it, I said finally. She wants them kempt. She wants definition. She's mad they're not boring spheres. Yep, Dave said. She wants them neat. What are you gonna do, carve them into squares? I stopped, the beer bottle halfway to my lips. A tiny, beautiful, terrible idea began to form in my mind. Carve them, I said slowly. What? You said carve them. She wants definition, right? She wants them kempt. She never said what shape. She just said neat and uniform. Dave looked confused. Frank, I think the $300 fine might have broken your brain. What are you talking about? What's the opposite of a boring sphere, Dave? What's the most defined thing you can think of? Dave, bless his simple, retired engineer heart, scratched his head. I don't know. A statue? A hand? I looked at him. He looked at me. A slow grin spread across my face. It felt rusty. A hand, I whispered. Dave, you are a genius. I am? Yes, but not just any hand. A specific hand. A positive hand. I ran inside, leaving Dave confused on the porch. I grabbed my laptop. I didn't Google landscaper. I didn't Google pruning. I Googled topiary artist near me. The first 10 search results were just Jim's Lawn and Order and Bill's Basic Bushes. All of them had websites featuring beige cul-de-sacs and smiling polo-shirted men standing next to, yep, sad green meatballs. I was about to give up when I scrolled to the second page. The link was simple. It didn't look like a business. It just said, Arturo's Arboreal Visions. I clicked it. My screen went black, and then white text faded in line by line, like a pretentious art film. Arturo's Arboreal Visions. I do not trim. I liberate. Your shrubbery is a prison. I hold the key. The boxwood wishes to be a dragon. The yew tree longs to be Socrates. Do not deny them their truth. There was no about us, no services, just a gallery and a contact link. I clicked gallery. My jaw dropped. This was not Jim's Lawn and Order, the sus. First photo was a row of 6-foot poodles, carved from poodle bushes, that were so detailed they looked like they might actually bark. The next was a sprawling hedgerow that had been sculpted into a magnificent, scaly dragon, its leafy tail curling around a chimney. There was a bust of Socrates. There was a spiral-horned unicorn. There was a perfect, life-sized replica of Michelangelo's David, carved entirely from an overgrown cypress tree. This was my guy. This was the only person on Earth who could understand. I clicked contact. It was just a phone number. I dialed. It rang once. "Arturo speaks," a voice said. It was liquid velvet, with a thick, completely unplaceable European accent. It sounded like a man who had breakfast in Spain, lunch in Italy, and dinner in France, all while wearing a silk robe. Hello? Arturo?" I stammered. "My name is Frank. I found your website." "Ah, Francesco," he boomed, as if we were old friends. "You have a prisoner, yes? A bush that yearns? A shrub that screams for liberation?" Yes. Exactly. I have 2 prisoners, 2 rose bushes, and, well, I have a situation with my homeowners association. A deep, theatrical sigh came through the phone. "Ah, the bourgeoisie, the committees of conformity. They seek to control nature, yes? To put the wild beast in a tiny beige cage. They bleed the color from the world until all that is left is taupe." You have no idea," I said, amazed. "The envelopes are literally beige." "But of course," he laughed. "Tell me, Francesco, what is your budget for liberation?" "That," I said, "depends on what you can do." "I can do anything. What is your vision?" "Well," I hesitated, suddenly feeling foolish. "I was thinking, a hand." "A hand," he mused. "The symbol of humanity, creation. A helping hand, perhaps? A hand waving hello?" Not exactly. I was thinking 2 hands, one from each bush, and they're giving a thumbs up." There was a long, dramatic pause on the other end of the line. I thought I'd lost him. I thought he'd hang up on me for being a low-brow suburban idiot. Then he spoke. His voice was low, filled with a sudden, intense reverence. "Ah, Pollex Pressus." "What? The Roman gesture, the sign of the gladiator, the thumb pressed to show all is well, to spare the life. You wish to give the thumbs up?" "Yes, a thumbs up. 2 of them. Pointed right at the street, where everyone can see them." "It is chef's kiss. Magnificent!" he cried, his voice ringing with pure artistic joy. "It is brilliant. It is sarcastic. Yet it is undeniably positive. She cannot fight a positive gesture. It is malice, wrapped in the cloak of encouragement. Francesco, it is a masterpiece of passive-aggressive horticulture." "She?" I asked. "How did you know it was a she?" "It is always a she, Francesco, or a Gary, but usually a she. I will be there in 1 hour. We will plan the installation." He hung up. Exactly 1 hour later, a pristine, white, unmarked van, the kind that either belongs to a high-end caterer or an international spy ring, pulled into my driveway. The man who stepped out was not what I expected. Arturo was tiny, maybe 5'3", and looked to be in his late 60s. He was wearing a crisp white linen suit, a jaunty black beret, and a pair of tiny, perfectly round sunglasses. He carried a leather satchel and a single, ornate, golden-handled pair of shears, which he held like a king holding a scepter. He didn't look at me. He didn't say hello. He walked right past me onto the lawn and began to circle the 2 butchered rose bushes. He stopped. He leaned in. He sniffed one of the blooms. He purred. Rosa rugosa. She is angry. She has been violated. He glared at my shears, which were still lying accusingly on the porch. You did this to her? I was trying to comply, I whispered, ashamed. Compliance is for sheep, he snapped. But no matter. The spirit is still strong. There is much power here. He circled the bush on the right. And this one? Oh yes. She is repressed. She longs for expression. We can work with this. We can liberate them. He turned to me, finally, and removed his sunglasses. His eyes were bright and intense. So, Francesco, the thumbs up. You are certain. This is your vision. Yes. 2 giant thumbs up, as kempt and defined as you can possibly make them. The HOA wants definition, so I'm going to give them definition. Arturo put his hands on his hips. The bushes are unbalanced. Your attack has left them scarred. This will require structure, wireframing, and we must work at night. At night? Why? The muse, he said, looking at the sky. She prefers the moonlight. Also, the neighbors are nosy, yes? And the she you speak of, the Brenda. We do not want her to see the caterpillar before it is a butterfly. We want her to see the butterfly. Good point. I will bring my team, he said. We will need scaffolding. We will need lights. We will bring the wire. When we are done, they will be magnificent. Okay, I said, my heart pounding. This is really happening. Okay. How much? Arturo pulled a small leather notebook from his pocket, scribbled in it with a fountain pen, and tore out the page. He handed it to me. I looked at the number. It was staggering. It was more than a year's worth of HOA fines. It was more than my last mortgage payment. It was, objectively, an insane amount of money to spend on a shrubbery joke. I looked at the number. I looked at the butchered bushes Emily had planted. I looked across the street at Brenda's house, with its perfectly beige, perfectly soul-crushing compliance. I took out my checkbook. Liberation, I said, doesn't come cheap. When do you start? Arturo smiled, a slow, brilliant smile. Tonight, Francesco. Tonight, we make art. At 11:00 p.m. on the dot, the white van returned. It rolled up to my curb with the silent grace of a shark. No headlights until the very last second. I was a nervous wreck. I was on my 3rd cup of coffee, peeking through the slats of my blinds like a paranoid character in a spy movie. General Tso was sitting on the back of the sofa, watching me watch the van, his tail twitching. This is it, General, I whispered. This is either the best idea I've ever had or the most expensive, idiotic way to get sued in human history. The general let out a yawn, clearly unimpressed with my existential crisis. The van doors slid open. Arturo emerged, this time dressed in a black turtleneck, black slacks, and his black beret. He looked like a cat burglar about to rob a museum. 2 assistants, also dressed in black, emerged with him. They were silent, efficient, and moved with a purpose that was frankly terrifying. Within 10 minutes, my front lawn was transformed. It looked professional. They erected a small, complex system of lightweight scaffolding around each bush. They unrolled thick black cables and set up 2 battery-powered floodlights, casting my lawn in a stark, theatrical glow. But they were angled down, illuminating only the bushes, preventing light from spilling into any neighbor's windows. Then the work began. Arturo, standing on a small platform, was a man possessed. He had a whole new set of tools, electric trimmers of various sizes, all of which seemed to be muffled, emitted a low, precise whir. And of course, his golden shears, which he used for the fine detail, making sharp snip, snip, snip sounds in the quiet night air. I was pacing. I went from the living room window to the kitchen window, back to the living room window. I made more coffee. I stress-ate an entire sleeve of crackers. Every so often I'd hear Arturo's voice, a low, intense whisper. No, no, the knuckle. Give me definition in the knuckle. It must have character. More curve on the pollex. It must not be limp. It must be a thumb of conviction. The angle. Check the angle. It must be 45 degrees. The perfect angle of affirmation. His assistants were weaving wire frames inside the bushes, training the wild branches, compacting the leaves. They were part gardeners, part engineers, part sculptors. It was less like gardening and more like a high-stakes art heist, performed in reverse. I finally gave up trying to sleep, around 3 a.m. I dozed off on the couch, my brain buzzing with the sound of muffled trimmers and the smell of cut leaves. My alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. For a second I was confused. My neck was stiff. Then the memory of the night came flooding back. The van. Arturo. The thumbs. I sat bolt upright. Oh God. The house was silent. The sun was just starting to stream through the blinds. I was terrified to look. What if it was awful? What if it was just another more expensive hack job? What if it looked like 2 giant green... well, something else. I walked, slowly to the front window. I put my hand on the blinds. General Tso joined me, hopping onto the windowsill. Okay, Frank, I whispered. 1, 2, 3... I pulled the cord. The slats rotated. It was glorious. I'm not just saying it was good. I'm saying it was a masterpiece. Arturo and his team were gone. The scaffolding, the lights, the van, all vanished. All that remained was their creation. The 2 bushes were transformed. They were no longer bushes. They were sculptures. 2 massive, leafy hands, each one at least 6 feet tall, rising from the ground. The detail was breathtaking. Arturo had used the thicker, woodier stems to define the bones and the dense leaves to create the flesh. You could see the fingernails. You could see the gentle crease of the knuckles. You could see the muscular pad at the base of the thumb. And both of them, in perfect, crisp, enthusiastic unison, were giving an anatomically correct, undeniably positive thumbs up. They were pointed right at the street. Right at Brenda's house. They were, and this was the genius of it, immaculately kempt. Not a single leaf was out of place. They were trimmed, defined, and perfectly, beautifully uniform. I grabbed my coffee and went outside, my slippers damp in the morning dew. I stood on my walkway, just admiring. I was grinning like an idiot. I heard a car slow down. A guy on his way to work in a Honda Accord slowed, stopped, and just stared. Then He honked his horn and gave me a thumbs up of his own. I was just taking my first sip of coffee when I heard it. It started as a low, strangled noise, like a kettle trying to boil while being suffocated. Then it escalated into a high-pitched, vibrating gasp shriek. It was a sound I had never heard in nature, a sound that combined pure, unadulterated rage with the shock of a sudden, icy cold discovery. It was Brenda. She was standing on her own lawn, across the street, in a pink silk bathrobe and fuzzy slippers. Her morning paper was on the ground. Her hand, the real one, was clutched to her chest. Her clipboard, praise be, was nowhere in sight. She was just vibrating. "What?" she shrieked, the word cracking. "What did you do?" I took a calm sip of my coffee. "Morning, Brenda," I called out, giving her a friendly wave. "Just remediating the situation like you asked." Her face had gone from pale to a deep, alarming shade of crimson. You got 'em professionally kempt," I continued, walking over to one of the thumbs and pretending to inspect it. "I hired a specialist, an artist, really. He gave them definition. What do you think? I think they give the neighborhood real character." By now, other neighbors were coming out. Doors were opening. My neighbor Dave was on his porch, a look of pure, beatific joy on his face. He wasn't clapping, but he was slowly bringing his hands together in a gesture of profound respect. A car stopped in the middle of the street. A woman was hanging out the window, taking a picture with her phone. "This is a mockery!" Brenda finally managed to scream, finding her words. A mockery!" "A mockery?" I said, putting on my most innocent, confused expression. "Brenda, it's a thumbs up. It's the most positive, encouraging gesture there is. It's the A-OK signal. Are you against positivity? Are you against good job gestures? That doesn't sound very community-minded of you." I'd weaponized her own buzzword. I saw her flinch. She was flipping through her giant 3-ring binder of HOA rules, which she had apparently run back inside to get. Her fingers were trembling. "I'm fining you!" she yelled, her voice cracking. "I'm fining you for unsanctioned landscape modification. Yes, Bylaw 9.2. "Find the rule, Brenda," I said, my voice calm. "Show me the rule." "I read the bylaws last night. Show me the rule that says no topiary. Show me the rule that says all bushes must be meatballs. Show me the rule that says positive hand gestures are prohibited." She just sputtered. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. She was beaten. She knew it. The rules, her only weapon, were silent on the subject of giant, leafy thumbs. "You'll be hearing from our lawyer!" she finally shrieked. She turned, her pink bathrobe flapping, and stormed back into her house, slamming the door so hard I thought her live, laugh, love wreath might fall off. I took another sip of coffee. It was the best cup of coffee I'd ever had. It didn't take long. By noon, my house was a local landmark. This is the biggest thing to happen in Crestview Meadows. Ever. People were driving by, slowing down and just honking. Teenagers, bless their hearts, were pulling over, getting out of their cars, and taking selfies while giving their own thumbs up in return. I saw Janet from across the street. She walked over, laughing so hard she was wiping tears from her eyes. "Frank, that is the single greatest thing I have ever seen. Brenda has been on a rampage. She cited my garden gnome for non-sanctioned statuary." The Crestview Meadows Community Forum, a sad beige corner of the internet, usually reserved for complaining about dog poop and suspicious teenagers, exploded. The post was titled, "Brenda versus the Thumbs. You have to see this." The thread was pure gold. Brenda's ally number 1. This is tacky and immature. It lowers property values. My children have to see this. Dave, my neighbor. See what? A positive affirmation? My property value just went up. We're the Thumbs Up House Street now. It's a landmark. Janet. My kids love them. They call them the good job bushes. Brenda, in all caps. This is a blatant violation and a personal attack. I am in contact with the HOA's legal counsel. This will be removed. I was sitting at my computer, blissfully reading The Meltdown, when I saw the flashing lights. Of course, she called the cops. Black and white squad car rolled to a stop right in front of my house. 2 officers got out. One was young, probably new to the beat, and looked like he was desperately trying to maintain a professional expression. The other was older, Sergeant Miller, according to his nameplate, and he had the most tired, "I'm too old for this suburban nonsense" look I'd ever seen. I walked outside. "Officers, good morning. Can I help you?" Sergeant Miller sighed, a deep, profound sigh that seemed to carry the weight of every absurd 911 call he'd ever answered. "Sir, we got a call about a public nuisance. Something about hostile topiary?" The younger one, Officer Kent, turned his head and coughed. It was a very bad fake cough. He was 100% laughing. "Hostile topiary?" I said, feigning shock. "Oh, you must mean my bushes. I just had them landscaped." Right on cue, Brenda marched out of her house, her 3-ring binder of doom clutched to her chest. She had, thank God, changed out of her bathrobe and into her battle beige pantsuit. "Officers, thank goodness you're here," she said, striding across my lawn. "This man," she pointed at me, "is creating a public nuisance. He's gesticulating at the entire neighborhood." Sergeant Miller looked at me. He looked at the 6-foot leafy thumb. He looked back at Brenda. "Ma'am, they're bushes." "They're obscene," she insisted. "Ma'am," Miller said, his patience clearly draining, "they're thumbs up. It's a positive gesture. Like A-OK." "It's sarcastic," Brenda hissed. "It's lewd. It's clear and targeted harassment against me, an officer of the HOA." "Ma'am, sarcasm isn't a misdemeanor," Miller said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "And lewd? I'm not seeing anything lewd here. They're actually pretty well done." "Anatomically correct, Sarge," Officer Kent muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. He got a glare from Miller. "Sir," Sergeant Miller said to me, "are you threatening this woman?" "No, officer," I said politely. "I'm just wishing everyone a positive A-OK kind of day. My wife planted those bushes, and the HOA said they were unkempt. So I hired a professional to kemp them. I think he did a great job." "He did do a great job," Kent said, before Miller shot him another look. "Ma'am," Miller said, turning back to Brenda, "this is an HOA matter. It's a civil dispute. It is not a police matter. Do not, and I repeat, do not call 911 again, unless your bushes are on fire or actively committing a felony." But, Brenda sputtered. "Have a good day, sir," Miller said to me, pointedly ignoring her. "And, nice definition." He tipped his cap. They got back in their car. As they drove away, I saw Officer Kent in the passenger seat, his shoulders visibly shaking with laughter. Brenda was left standing on my lawn. She was breathing heavily. She had no authority left. The police, her ultimate weapon, had literally laughed in her face. She didn't say another word. She just turned, clutching her binder, and made the walk of shame back to her beige house. I went inside, poured myself a very large, very early glass of iced tea, and sat down to watch the good job bushes go locally viral. Brenda was desperate. This was her last stand. Her power, built on a foundation of beige envelopes and petty fines, was crumbling. She'd been beaten by horticulture. She'd been dismissed by the police. She had one card left to play: public shaming. She called an emergency board meeting. The next evening, she and the two other board members, a quiet man named Gary, who always looked terrified, and a woman named Cynthia, who was just a carbon copy of Brenda, set up a card table on the sidewalk, right in front of my house. She'd sent out a blast email. Urgent. Meeting to discuss non-compliant landscape installation and threat to community standards. She was using my thumbs as a backdrop of terror. A small crowd gathered. Dave was there, of course. Janet. A few other neighbors I only ever waved to. Everyone was looking at the thumbs, then at Brenda, then back at the thumbs. "Thank you for coming," Brenda began, her voice strained. "As you can all see, she jests mercy," a voice said. It was Artur dramatically behind her. "Our community is under attack. This filth is a mockery of our bylaws." "They're thumbs, Brenda," Dave called out, sipping from a water bottle that I was 90% sure was filled with a gin and tonic. "It's anarchy," she pressed on, ignoring him. "This is how it starts. First, it's obscene gestures carved into shrubbery. Then, what's next? Cars on lawns, unpermitted paint colors. It's a slippery slope. We, the board, have voted to fine Mr. Johnson $1,000 a day until this blight is removed." The crowd murmured. That was a serious escalation. "And if he refuses," she continued, her voice rising to a crescendo, "we will use the reserve fund to have them forcibly removed and replaced with community-standard, compliant shrubbery." "You mean meatballs?" someone yelled from the back. "Actually, Brenda," Janet spoke up, stepping forward, "I like them. I think they're funny, and my kids love them. They're cheerful, and frankly, after you find me from my welcome mat, I'm all for a little anarchy." "Me too," another neighbor said. "You cited me because my basketball hoop was not in use on a Tuesday. My son was at school. You've gone too far, Brenda." But property values," Brenda stammered, falling back on the ultimate HOA boogeyman. "Think of the aesthetic cohesion." "I think," a deep, accented voice rang out, "that they are magnificent." The crowd parted. Arturo. He had apparently come to inspect his work. He was back in his white linen suit, beret perched perfectly on his head. He walked right up to the card table, his golden shears hanging from his belt. "Ah," he said, smiling at Brenda. "The critic, Madam President. You have come to admire my opera magistralis? My homage to positivity?" "You!" Brenda hissed, pointing a trembling finger. "You did this! You shrub mutilator!" Arturo put a hand to his heart, deeply, theatrically wounded. "Mutilator? Madam, I am a liberator. I found these two beautiful, repressed Rosa Rugosa, beaten and abused." He shot me a look, and I had the grace to look ashamed of my pruning attempt. "And I gave them a voice. I gave them definition. You wanted Kempt, and I gave you art." He walked over to one of the thumbs. "And look, he pointed. The roses. In all the drama, I'd hardly noticed. The bushes, which had been brutally remediated by me and then skillfully liberated by Arturo, had responded. Tiny, new, deep red buds were blooming all over the leafy hands. The thumbs up were covered in beautiful, defiant red roses. "You see," Arturo declared to the crowd, "they are happy. They are blooming. They are finally free to live their truth." Brenda had no response. She was staring at the red roses blooming on the green thumbs. The metaphor was too perfect. The symbolism was too strong. The crowd was openly laughing now. Dave was clapping. Brenda looked at the laughing faces. She looked at Arturo, who was bowing. She looked at the giant, 6-foot, rose-covered thumbs up. She'd been beaten by art, by sarcasm, by botany. She let out a small, strangled squeak. She gathered her binder. She didn't say, "Meeting adjourned." She just turned. She and Gary and Cynthia folded up their card table in humiliated silence and scurried away. The emergency meeting was over. The rebellion had won. The $1,000 a day fine never materialized. The next week, I got a different letter from the HOA. This one wasn't beige. It was on crisp, white, very expensive legal letterhead. It was from the HOA's law firm. "Dear Mr. Johnson," it read, "after a thorough review of the covenants, conditions, and restrictions for the Crestview Meadows community, we have determined that while unconventional, topiary art is not explicitly prohibited by the bylaws. Furthermore, the board cannot invent fines that are not part of the established fine schedule. The board has been advised to cease all remediation efforts regarding your property. All outstanding fines related to this matter have been waived." I translated this from legalese. "Brenda, are you kidding me? Stop. The thumbs stay. They've become a permanent fixture. Arturo, true to his word, comes by once a month for what he calls a manicure. I happily pay his fee. He keeps them in perfect, pristine, thumbs-up shape, and the roses have never been more beautiful. Brenda still patrols the neighborhood, clipboard in hand. But she has lost her power. The beige terror is over. And I'll tell you, she never makes eye contact with my house. She just walks past, her eyes fixed straight ahead, pretending my entire lawn is invisible. But I like to think that every time she passes, she can feel those two giant, leafy, rose-covered hands wishing her a fantastic, A-OK, community-minded day. I'm on my porch right now, drinking a beer. Dave just wandered over and handed me another one. "Evening, Frank," he said. "Evening, Dave." We both looked at the thumbs, which were catching the nice golden light of the sunset. "You know," he said, "you're a local hero, the thumbs-up guy. People are driving here from other neighborhoods to see them." "I'm not a hero, Dave," I said, taking a sip. "I'm just a guy who really, really likes his wife's roses." I looked at the bushes. They're ridiculous. They're over the top. They're completely absurd. And they are the most beautiful they've ever been. Emily would have loved them. I raised my bottle to the thumbs. Life in Crestview Meadows, I thought, is finally A-OK.